erased destiny to the knower. Chapter 12. Taste of War. By the river, Jargon came across the remains of a recent battle, the bodies slashed by the swords and the armor pierced by arrows. The boy stopped at the body of the god, who had helped him when he arrived in Tyrdam. He felt sorry for the nice man who tried his best to do his job and help the city's inhabitants. Now he was lying dead in the name of higher political goals. If it was up to him, Nathan would carry out all actions in secret so as not to endanger innocent people. He would get rid of designated people, those who commanded hostile troops or plotted against the rightful ruler. Meanwhile, the team's march resembled a regular war, except that the bodies were only on one side. The hasty extinguishing of burning warehouses distracted the city's inhabitants from the corpses lying in the streets. Nobody cared about the corpses. Nobody paid attention to them. In fact, people trampled on the dead, running with buckets of water from the river to the fire. Jargon didn't want to see this face of war. He closed his eyes and relied on Nathan to make his way to the nearest roof. He just didn't want to have to open his eyes or listen to the moans and cries of the people below him, those who had lost family members, those who had lost their possessions. In the name of peace and the preservation of the magical balance, Jargon slowly began to understand Nathan's motivations. He served the palace to protect the innocent. He undertook the most difficult missions to reduce the number of deaths. After Nathan's disappearance, unscrupulous vampires took over the Seekers, and gentle, conflict-averse Zuzu was unable to call them to order. She was glad that someone was disciplining her disobedient subjects and suppressing revolts. But at what cost? Why didn't Zuzu use her power and authority to talk some sense into people? Why didn't she lock them up in a dungeon instead of letting vampires take their lives? That wasn't what Nathan taught Zuzu. That wasn't the example Etien set for her. Etien took care of everything personally, didn't trust anyone except for some seekers and the old guard of mages. This caused her to sleep poorly and to be constantly exhausted, but under her reign, no one organized similar marches. But still, 10 belonged to the unit decimating Tyrdam's population. Had they been ambushed? Nathan stopped to find answers to his questions. Against Jargon's will, Nathan jumped onto the pavement and, hidden in the darkness, examined the scene of the clash. He could not accept that his beloved, idealized sovereign had allowed the slaughter of her subjects, even if they had disobeyed her. The bodies of the elite guards hanging from the edge of the roof showed signs of having been strangled with ivy. Nathan had no sympathy for them. They had been hunting Etien, so they deserved what they got. Was only supposed to set fire to the old warehouses. It was hard to blame the girl for not being able to control the power she unleashed, for unintentionally causing a huge fire after experiencing the horrors of Tyrdam. Etien, although she tried to stop the fire from spreading, lost the unequal battle with the wind, which she did not control. Topaz, from a nearby stone statue, was watching their backs. He killed the guards who tried to catch the arsonists. A thorough analysis of the traces led Nathan to the most likely scenario. To reduce number of guards patrolling the area close to the base of fire mages, Etien planned to set up a fire in another part of the city. Old, empty warehouses made of wood were a perfect spot for that purpose. She wanted to spare the guards because the fire spreaded too much. To protect the city from being burnt to the ground, they stayed at the site for too long and had to fight the guards that came. There were many corpses killed with a bow and only few slashed. So Uzumaat stayed close to Etien and killed only those who endangered her. That observation made Nathan calm down a bit. It looked like finally Uzumaat learned how to protect someone. So it was Sonja who took down every guard she could see. Nathan was not surprised. The vampire was often accused of overdoing things, killing more than it was needed for the mission. That is why in the palace, Etien kept her eye on her, did not assign her missions that required fighting many opponents, only silent assassinations. But as a leader of the Seekers, Sonja could do as she pleased. Nathan wondered how many innocent people had died already because of that. Nathan remembered one thing more. He had to write down every casualty, every accident that happened during the missions. And Etien investigated all those cases. They were not often, fortunately, but people responsible for being not careful enough were sentenced to cleaning service or to death. Did Zuzu respect the same rules? Nathan was sure she didn't. Nathan caught up with the team near the city walls, close to the entrance to the abandoned mine. Uzumaat was missing and Etien was scanning the area with her golden eyes. She instinctively sent poison ivy to meet the newcomer.
It's me. Jargon. I'll take you inside.
Jargon, how do you feel? How's the hand?
It's fine, nothing to worry about.
Nathan noticed the partially healed burns on Yuma's forearms, the result of her own magic, fueled by her desire to prove herself to Etien. He noticed Tope's torn shirt, probably from a nail. Finally, he noticed the ash on Marigold's hair. And he felt guilty. With water and ice spells, he could have helped fight the fire. If he had followed Etien instead of interrogating the prisoner, he might have saved the lives of more than a dozen guards. If he had revealed himself, if he had taken responsibility for the success of the mission, if he had had enough courage, the events in Tyrdam could have been completely different. He blamed Zuzu, while he himself. A cloud of smoke took the shape of Uzumaat, who had just reported back from the reconnaissance.
They've taken over an abandoned mine. A decent earthquake, and we'll get rid of them all in one go.
And half the city.
Nathan thanked the girl on behalf of the people living nearby. He was ready to give her substantial and moral support in the discussion with the destruction-loving vampires. But the vampires did not insist. They waited for Etien to explain her plan.
We'll infiltrate the mine. I want to know what they're doing here, what they're planning. Then we'll take them out. No minors.
She cupped her hands together, creating a tiny cave of icy breath. Uzuma looked very disappointed. He pointed significantly to his blades, still covered with blood from the last clash. And Nathan analyzed alternative scenarios. He could create a portal to the palace, put the enemies in a dungeon, avoid a third bloodbath in 2 days. If Etien agreed to his plan, if she would even let him express it.
Maybe Zuzu could take them to the palace. For questioning.
The dead will say more than the living. Mages are an army, and in the army, treason is punishable by death. Of course, Uzumaat will deal with the matter after Topez has taken you two to the apartment.
Treason is punishable by death. Nathan knew that very well. He was accused of treason and thrown into a dungeon, awaiting a death sentence that he never received. What if the mages did not act of their own free will? What if someone hypnotized or deceived them? More and more questions popped into Nathan's head. He pinched the bridge of his nose with his fingertips. He didn't have time to think about such things.
If I may make a suggestion, I will take you inside. Our prisoner is a figurehead, but well respected here. He took care of everything for the mages, including supplies. We may pretend to be merchants willing to make a deal with them.
Not a bad idea, especially for those who can't disappear into the darkness. But too time-consuming. My mind magic would be much faster and more effective.
The vampires smiled at each other. Etien nodded to Jargon and stepped aside, followed by the boy. They disappeared around the corner of a collapsed building. When they were alone, the girl undressed Jargon. Seeing the changes taking place on his face, she laughed. She was much more interested in his regenerated hand than in his protruding belly. Nathan looked at Etienne's dark red gloves, covered with magical symbols. He didn't recognize them, but suspected the domain of fire. Etien created a barrier to help herself in controlling Noemi and fighting the mages. Etien made use of everything available, of every piece of information, of every opportunity.
It looks good. But try not to fight, okay? It won't grow back again. Remember that? What else did you find out?
The mages have considerable financial resources, far too much for outcasts. The sanctions were implemented 6 months ago, the same time as mages came here. That's when the security were tightened in Tyrdam as well. New rules were created by a woman with blue hair, called Snowflake. She is in charge of Tyrdam, although officially she is the commander of the guards only. She wears Seeker's uniform and orange feather of unknown origin. Everyone is afraid of her. That's all.
Nathan bit his tongue in time. He almost added "my lady" at the end of his statement. He was waiting for a grateful stroke of the hair, for a little tenderness.
You did a great job, thank you. Better than Sonja, surprisingly. Wouldn't you like to join the Seekers?
Tien praised him, running her hand through his hair. The way he smiled, the way he approached her, it all looked so Nathan-like that. Etien put her hands on the back of her head. It looked like she was thinking about something, but that was in order for any Seeker nearby to reveal himself. Nathan wanted to obey her will, but Jargon froze him. Before Nathan regained control over Jargon's body, Etien changed her position, canceling the order. The consequence of breaking that rule was to be removed from the army. But Nathan was not a soldier. He sighed. Why didn't Etien look into his mind? Why did she have to respect other people's privacy? Death mages, mind mages, all of them took Nathan's memories whenever they felt like doing so. Only Etien trusted people, asked for their permission. He saw on her face the same thing that came to his mind. Noemi was hiding in Tyrdam. She adjusted the plan and wanted to join the team, but Nathan put his hands on Etienne's face. He kissed her hair. He wanted to get closer to Etien so badly. He craved her touch so much. One kiss, one hug, that's all he could think about. He whispered in her ear.
I am not fit to be a spy, but I'd be happy to help you. In Tyrdam. Or somewhere else. Wherever you need me.
I'm afraid. You're not ready. Your psyche. I don't want to have another youngster on my conscience. I'm sorry.
Memories of young Nathan came to Jargon's mind. Saskiel back then. Tien apologized to him with similar words. That she had destroyed his life. Saskiel had not been able to cope with his emotions, but Nathan had a great advantage over his former self, the experience of several decades. He had already been through it all.
Accompanying you is my decision. I am aware of its consequences.
You are wrong. Saskiel said the same thing. Exactly the same thing. And he ended up battered and bruised, his psyche destroyed, looking for comfort in all the brothels I know, and for oblivion in alcohol. Don't you understand? I am death. I can't do anything else.
Etien pushed the boy's hands away. She ran back to the group, and Nathan was left alone in the ruins. Tears welled up in his eyes. He didn't abuse alcohol. He didn't seek solace in brothels. but the company of Etien who was going there. Didn't she understand that? He wanted to shout in her face that she had never broken his life. He couldn't handle the responsibility, the consequences of his choices. But it was his fault, the fault of his personality. Angry at himself, but more at Etien, Nathan ran after her. Her smiling, relaxed face contrasted with the words she had spoken a moment earlier. Etien pretended nothing had happened. They were talking about the weather. It was her cold calm that annoyed Nathan the most. All his words seemed to roll off her, as if she carried a lump of ice in her chest instead of a heart. He didn't want to cause a blizzard. Something crushed him to the ground, brutally holding him motionless until Etien dispelled the spell.
Hey, we don't want to be noticed. Keep your nerve.
Magical kids are always like that. Let him go. There's a small change to the plan. If it comes to the fight, Topaz, you take and Jargon outside. Go to the apartment and wait for us there. If I am not mistaken, we will meet a formidable opponent down there, and your magic won't be of any use. Uzumayat, you stay close to me. Your blades and my power shall be enough to win the duel.
Before they went to the mine, Etien approached Jargon. Sure that he would be severely reprimanded for his reckless behavior, the boy took refuge behind Nathan. The former Seeker's leader looked his beloved straight in the eye without fear. Whatever she had to say to him, he deserved it. A slight smile played on his lips, the mask concealing his anxiety, and Etien didn't say a word. She took Jargon's hands as if to ask for caution. She turned and walked away to join the others. Nathan was left alone, not knowing what to do anymore. His plan was rejected. His behavior was not punished. Topaz was supposed to take him out if anything bad happened. Was he even needed in the mine? Etien made the decision in his place. She called out to him and he ran after her, like he always did. Up close, the entrance to the mine looked very different from what Jargon had imagined. 3 red-haired men in their prime, wearing dark blue and silver uniforms, were barricading the narrow passageway that had been broken out of the once closed gate. Instead of weapons, they carried amulets to protect them from water, although an attack by this element in the desert city seemed unlikely. One of the mages smelled of cheap alcohol. The other 2, although sober, had problems keeping their eyes open due to fatigue. Tien didn't have to hypnotize them even. She just passed next to them, hidden in the shadows, and all other team members followed her. Etien found Mage's apathy strange, but she blamed it on the recent skirmishes. Immediately after entering the mine, a sweetish odor was detected in the air.
Opium. The mystery of the revolutionaries' endless funds solved. What an interesting way to make money.
Salt was once mined here. As far as I remember, the deposits were exhausted about 100 or 150 years ago. This started a long-standing crisis in Tyrdam that continues to this day.
Etien stopped. Besides the sickly smell of drugs and the typical underground mine air mixed with earth dust, there was something else in the air. Something that the former ruler's human nostrils could not identify.
They're keeping some kind of animal in there, probably for transportation. Balls covered in fur on short, massive paws, ending in long, light-colored claws.
They're anteaters. They dig tunnels, but they are strong enough to pull a cart full of excavated material. Could it be that mining is still being done in this mine?
They entered a brightly lit chamber where salt used to be stored before being transported to the surface. Nowadays, the room was used by the mages as a dining room and a handy storage room. Half of the people inside seemed not to notice anything or anyone, too absorbed in their own narcotic visions. It was difficult to extract anything meaningful from their brains, so Etien was looking for someone a little more conscious as an informant. The sight of so many passive, degenerate people with emaciated bodies and absent gaze, once part of her army, filled the former sovereign with melancholy sadness. If it weren't for presence, the woman would have sat down on the ground and tried to understand what had happened. What had triggered the rebellion? Was it Elstar's overthrow from the throne? It was very likely. Whatever her son was, the fire mages adored him, mainly for the possibility of wreaking unlimited destruction. Changing the rules certainly caused resentment, but in order to break up the army, Zuzu had to have done something to alienate them. Or there was someone among the mages who was charismatic enough to encourage others to leave the palace. Someone like Narcissus. After reviewing Mage's belongings, Etien realized that the mine had only served as a shelter. They were collecting funds, but for what? Were they going to hire an army of thugs and attack the palace? Had they learned nothing from the failure of their black-robed colleagues? You can't take the palace by force. But the fire mages might not have known that. During Etienne's or Elstar's reign, no one had tried to do so. Umi stayed close to her older friend, with her hands folded like a fan to ward off a possible magical attack. However, the mages paid no attention to strangers hanging around the luggage. Nathan looked into several tunnels, but stayed close to the main chamber in case one of the mages in a narcotic frenzy attacked his companions. The tunnels, plunged in darkness, interested him far less than the safety of Etien, who was tapping on the wall. The other 3 participants of the expedition went deeper into the corridors, only to discover that they had not been used by the mages. Apart from the rooms with vats full of boiling goo, the mine seemed to be abandoned, and the lower levels had become covered with cobwebs and mushrooms. No one had been there for years, apart from some animals that preferred the dark. The lack of people also meant a lack of informants, so the hunter and the vampires returned empty-handed.
Sonia and Uzamat, who would have expected that? What are you doing in my mine? The breath of an ice dragon.
Etien absorbed the spell by forming a circle with 2 fingers of her right hand. The acid spell was followed by an excessive number of weak fire spells. The mages, immersed in a trance, twisted their hands, hitting unspecified points, usually far from the intruders, and their spells suffered from a lack of emotion. Caught the attacks with her hands folded into a fan, taking revenge on the mages with flying stones.
Nice. You're getting better and better. But now get out of here. All 3 of you.
The invisible figure calmly watched as her subordinates were stunned, as if they were of no value to her. Uzuma got rid of the other mages in a few minutes, and silence fell over the cave. Topaz tried to take him with him, but the girl used earth magic to glue herself to the ground, and Nathan kept his distance from the hunter. Noemi, it was really her. He felt happy and sad at the same time. The daughter that had betrayed them.
Didn't you want to question the corpses?
Before Etien touched any of them, the mages' bodies turned to dust. The walking death didn't care much about that. She bent down to pick up the abandoned robe, and, as she did so, a translucent figure of the former owner appeared before her, accompanied by other mages that had died just now. Ten's laugh filled the cave.
Did you forget that I am Death? Long time no see. Noemi, I hoped I could meet you here.
First, long, dark blue hair emerged from the darkness. Then a large red feather was seen. Finally, the Seeker's uniform. Seeing the spell hanging above Noemi's hand, Etien contacted Zuzu.
Get them to the palace. Now.
Did you want to talk to me? Really? We don't mean anything to you. This is all your fault.
The expedition members, summoned by the crystal spell, appeared in the throne room, right in front of the 11th. Etien landed gracefully on the floor. Sonja knelt down before the others realized what had happened to them. Cyril was the most surprised, as the teleportation had interrupted his climb up the Tyrdam's walls.